I asked you your society scorecard, how do people judge your success? And those were the answers you said. And then we did this what's important to you exercise. And that's what you said. And we looked at those side by side. And I'll never forget what you said. You said, I'm glad I didn't lose that stuff on the left chasing that other stuff.
Yeah, to me, you could have the other stuff. I've said that a lot. I said it 10 years ago. You know, reporters ask you about all the stress, or do you have... I said, look, you take this job away from me tomorrow and I'll be fine. So I went longer than that. I went to 18 years, so be it. I had a ball, but I never lost perspective of what the other stuff on the left or what truly makes you happy or not, you know. And
you still achieved it. I mean, you were able to achieve at a Hall of Fame level while keeping that other stuff intact, and I think that speaks to it. And I just want to run through some of the habits that you had to help you with that. So the first one I'd like you just to discuss, you took this from Spurrier. This is great. Talk about the New Year's Eve celebration.
Well, we were counting on being busy New Year's Eve. You know, that's when all the big bowl games were. The best bowl games were on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, so you could never celebrate New Year's Eve. So we always, at the end of the summer, before we started two-a-days, we always had a New Year's Eve celebration. All our wives were in long cocktail dresses. We were in coat and ties, and went to a great place, and you know, had drinks, had dinner, danced. I mean, had a big balloons, everything. You know, had a big time.
It creates a unified expectation that we're going to be busy, and everyone knows
exactly
that's not. Then talk about this every Wednesday night with your staff.
Yeah, we had our wives and children all come to the end of practice, and then we would all eat together. You know, before we went and watched our practice tape that evening. So it was a way again of all the families being together, us being around the other wives and children, where then there's just a lot of community with kids, all the children, then the other children become like cousins to them to a degree. You know, they get close to us as well, even though that's not my child or I'm not related. I see, you know, Junior here so much. It's like there's ownership there, even as assistant coaches with other children, you know, so.
No question. And then you took your kids to school for the first 16 years?
Again, I wanted them, you know, and to this day, my daughter will tell you she remembers those days, and, you know, singing songs in the car or, you know, whatever. So, again, you know, nothing lets them know how important they are. I don't think a lot more than that, you know, taking that quality time with them.
And then once a week for 16 years?
Yeah, 17 probably. The only year I missed was probably my first year. I hadn't been there yet. But it, again, gives you a real perspective of what true, you know, problems and tragedy is. And, you know, and again, helps you put yours in perspective that you got it pretty good if you're not dealing with health issues with your children or yourself.
Because when you win at year 2, you can float into the atmosphere, and that sort of anchored you into a reality.
Sure.
Yeah. Thursday night.
Well, you know what it was? It's just a way to, you know, friendships matter. I had good buddies in town or locally, you know, that would stop by. I always Thursday, you know, the Hayes in the Barn, right? You guys all have those, and coaches out here know the certain day, if it isn't done now, we're wasting your time, right? So the Hayes in the Barn, we go home a little earlier on Thursdays. We don't stay after practice. Practice is shorter on Thursday, so I always was finishing up some interviews or, you know, had to get on the phone with a couple people that I tried to put a lot off until Thursday when the Hayes in the Barn, some of the media interviews. So my buddies would hang around, local friends would come, and we'd have some cold cuts or whatever, maybe a few soda pops, but whatever, and they would hang around, and we would just sort of socialize while I was finishing up interviews or certain things I had to do. And it became just a fun, you know, half hour, you know, together.
The last thing I wanted to show is just you negotiated in your contract 10 extra seats on the plane.
Yeah, I thought, you know, forever as an assistant coach, most everywhere but Florida, of course. When I got to Florida, Coach Spurrier had all the wives could come to any game. It used to be wives were allowed to come to one game a year. Really? Did that make any sense? Like, we're not professional enough, I can't concentrate with my wife being there the night before. You know, so in the end, who's more invested in what you're doing than your spouse? That's how I looked at it. And so when I went to Florida, my wife was allowed to go to every single game. And when I got to Oklahoma, I asked ahead of taking the job, I want to make sure that our wives can go to any game they want. Who's more invested in what we're doing than they are? Nobody. So, so that was important to me. And, I think another thing, I don't know how, healthy habits, exercise every day. Coach Spurrier was huge on that. He goes, Bobby, aren't you going to work out today? You need to get down there. He'd be telling me to get out of the office and get 30, 45 minutes, do something, to keep your health good, and keep your heart right.
Well, I think those things allowed you to keep what's important. I guess the last question I would like, they just unveiled this. When you see that, what do you see, first of all?
That other guy. It's humbling. It's almost, hard to believe it's there, or that it happened, or that those 18 years happened, because they went by like that. But it was.
To that point, when they host this big tribute for you, what surprised you about the dialogue of everyone as they reflected on their time with you?
I don't know that it surprised me, but there was no talk of the winning, no talk of the championships, all talk of the experience and the relationship, mostly all relationship based and feelings, those things all, that's what lasts.
It's all about awareness. Let's give it up for Bob.
Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. All right.